Hey everyone, Dr. Reynolds, Urgent Care Management Monthly again here with Nila. And Nila's been with us before. Hi, Nila.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great.
Today we're talking about an interesting subject. It's a difficult subject on business entities and how to set up your urgent care, what kind of entity you could use, and so we'll talk a little bit about the different options. So let's talk about, maybe we'll start with different entities and just go through each entity and talk about generally what they are and the advantages and disadvantages to each.
Okay.
Should we do that? And we're not trying to be your attorney. Obviously you need an attorney to help you decide this, but we'll just give you some education as to what different options are. That was our CYA thing, so we're not trying to be people's attorney.
Right.
Why does an urgent care need to set up an urgent care as a business entity at all?
Well, tax laws for one thing. If you want protection, you need to follow the tax laws, and not only that, different states have different rules and regulations that you'll need to follow also.
Right. And different entities follow different tax laws.
Exactly.
A C Corp is very much different from an S Corp.
That's correct.
So,
and there's about 6 different entities that you can form, so
right.
you have to be very
So let's
careful.
talk about one. The most easy and basic is called a sole proprietorship.
Exactly.
So tell us about that. What is that?
It's probably the easiest one to form, but only one individual can own a sole proprietorship.
Right.
But along with that comes some disadvantages.
Which are?
You're solely responsible
For everything.
for everything,
Yep.
for any debts.
All liabilities.
Right, and if you have to file bankruptcy, it has to be filed in your name.
Right, and it comes to your personal, it doesn't protect your personal assets.
Exactly.
And I think that's the biggest downfall, is
Right.
your personal assets are at risk. So the next thing that's kind of one step up from that would be a general partnership.
Well, it's easy to form also. It's kind of like the sole proprietorship, but you can have more than
one partner.
one partner. So
Once again, does not protect your personal assets. So
no, it does not.
now you get to split your personal assets with your other general partner who gets to split his personal
Right,
assets.
and each one of you would be personally responsible.
Right. So obviously, we're not recommending anybody start an urgent care with either of those two.
No.
Right?
No,
That
absolutely
would
not.
probably be a bad idea, but it's good information as to why you wouldn't want to do that if somebody talks to you about that. So the next thing to come to is called a limited partnership, right?
Right.
And let's talk about what's the difference between a general partnership and a limited partnership.
Well, the limited partnership, you are limited on the amount of liability that you have. You're only, for the amount of investment that you put into it is what you're liable for.
You're liable for your investment amount. If somebody's to sue you. There are advantages and disadvantages to everything. What would be the disadvantage to a limited partnership?
Well, in a limited partnership, the partner does not take any type of responsibility as far as management of the limited partnership.
Which is what defines a limited partnership.
Exactly.
If I'm a limited partner, what that means is I put in money and I watch and see what happens and they send me cash.
Exactly.
Versus if I'm a general partner, then I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations. So a lot of times when we set up a partnership, you'll have a limited partner and a general partner. The general partner manages the business day-to-day. The limited partner is a cash-only type partner. Is that kind of
That's
the right
correct.
idea?
That's correct.
So if you're going to be a limited partner, you better be sure you don't want to have any say in the day-to-day operations.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about corporations a little bit. There's basically two kinds. There's some knockoffs of these, but generally you got S Corps and C Corps.
Right.
So talk to me about S Corps.
S Corps, you're limited on the amount of shareholders that you can have, of 75. And on a C Corp, you can have unlimited.
Okay.
But the only thing with that is if you have limited number, then if you ever decide to go public, then you will have an issue there.
Okay. And what is a C Corp?
A C Corp is you have unlimited shareholders, unlimited shareholders.
Right.
So, but there again, on the tax liabilities of each one of them, you really need to talk with a tax attorney.
Right. So the important thing I think for most people out here, especially if they're doctors looking to set this up, is every state has regulations as to what a physician can open. In other words, if you're going to bill patients in some states, for instance in the state of Texas, a C Corp can't bill patients. So you have to have a professional association, which is a type of corporation that the state of Texas has set up for professionals like lawyers, doctors, accountants. And so, and that varies state to state. They're still corporations, you're still limited in your liability, but they're professional corporations that the state has mandated can only be set up for those kind of things. So that somewhat can limit which type of organization you can use too. I think that's kind of important information. Now in some states they may be able to use any form. And so I think it's really important that as you go to your attorney, you say, okay, in the state of whatever we're in, what are my options for the best thing of this? Okay, so benefits to being set up as a C Corp or an S Corp?
Well, you can be double taxed on the on the C Corp.
Right.
Versus on the S Corporation.
Right. So a C Corporation, essentially what happens is all the money flows into the C Corporation, it pays its taxes, that money flows into the shareholders and they pay their taxes.
Right.
In an S Corp, it flows to the S Corp and those taxes belong to the owners of that corporation.
That's correct.
So do you see any advantages to a C Corp?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you a couple. Because there are advantages and disadvantages to everything, right? There are a couple advantages to a C Corp. A C Corp can set up its tax year at any time. So an S Corp is required to be January to January. A C Corp can set up its tax to be from July to July. So if that's important in your business, and then that's one of the advantages. Every publicly traded company is a C Corp. Every single one. So if you're going to become a publicly traded company, if that's something in your future, if that's an issue, then the C Corp obviously.
Because of the unlimited shareholders, right?
The nice thing about a C Corporation also is that, the nice thing about the law is that you can convert an S to a C. You cannot convert a C to an S. So if you're considering it, you start with an S Corp, you can always convert an S to a C one time. You can't go back. So we've actually done that with one of our entities. All right, so what about a limited liability company? How does that, what you hear people say LLC all the time, what does that mean in comparison to what we've been talking about?
Well, the limited liability company is more kind of like a corporation. It's set up in the same basic way, with the exception you have a management agreement, which is really nice if you've got others involved in it. It lays out exactly who's going to be responsible for what. It's easy to transfer on a limited liability company. It just has more advantages than most of the others.
Yeah. So in an LLC, everybody's a partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody gets say of the day-to-day operations.
Right.
So why is it called limited?
Limited liability company is because you're limited on the
amount of money
that
you'll be liable for, right? And it's limited to essentially not your personal assets.
Right.
It's limited to the assets of the company,
just of the company,
corporation,
and not of your personal.
which is why it's limited.
Right.
So, okay, good. So, at urgent care owner, I know this is confusing to everybody out there because it's confusing to me, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's still confusing. And I have basically at least one of every one of these entities. So I've done all this, and it's still confusing. So the ultimate question is, urgent care decides what type of entity they're going to want to be. What's the best way to go about that?
Well, the first thing that you must do is decide what your business goals are going to be, because it's going to have the biggest impact on which route you're going to take as far as which company you form. Definitely go to an attorney. I would highly recommend tax attorney or corporate attorney to give you all the different tax laws for the different.
And I would add to that, go to both.
Right.
Because a tax attorney has a completely different take on it than the corporate attorney. When I go to my corporate attorney, he says one thing, my tax attorney completely disagrees for a different reason.